Hi, everybody. Today we're going to do a deep dive into the U.S. Senate election in Pennsylvania. In this purple state, Democrats had the advantage, but Republicans hoping to pull off an upset and make gains in the Senate. So we'll start here with some background information. The incumbent senator here is Bob Casey. He's running for re-election to a fourth term. Prior to serving as senator, he did hold other elected statewide offices. In his last win in 2018, he won by 13 points, so it wasn't really competitive at all. His opponent on the Republican side is Dave McCormick. McCormick's background is in the hedge fund business. He also served under the George W. Bush administration, and he also ran for the Senate just 2 years ago, where he just barely came in second place in that GOP primary behind Dr. Oz. And there's also some third-party candidates on the ballot. If we go down here and take a look at what they did in their primaries, there's not really anything to take a look at. Both Casey and McCormick faced no opposition, and they also had almost the exact same total, over 98% of the vote against some write-ins. And if you want to compare raw vote totals in those primaries, Democrats at 1,042,000, Republicans 894,000. I don't think primary numbers matter for the general election at all, especially when these two didn't face any competitors. But if you do care about it, then Casey has a little bit of an edge. Now let's go down here and see how this race is rated. We've got Cook, Decision Desk, and Larry Sabato at Lean Democratic. Inside Elections has it at Tilt, and this rating has held steady all the way through the past month. My own rating at the beginning of this month was just into likely Democrat territory. That was about 5.5 to 6 points. I do think this is Casey's race to lose. He's a well-known incumbent. He may be a little bit bland, but he also comes off as non-threatening. Plus, he's Bob Casey Jr. His dad, Bob Casey Sr., previously served 2 terms as governor. So the Casey name does run deep in this state. It would be hard to take down a long-time incumbent like Casey. But McCormick seems like he actually is running a fairly solid campaign. He might have some of his own criticisms. He's been branded a carpetbagger. That sounds similar to Dr. Oz a couple of years ago. But Casey also was known as a pro-life Democrat at one point. There's some interesting dynamics in this race, and it's actually shaping up to be fairly competitive. If we go down here to the campaign financing, Casey's is only updated through the end of June. McCormick's goes through the end of September. Either way, Casey, the established incumbent, has raised significantly more, although their cash on hand is nearly the same. But again, Casey's has not been updated. Now, to get a better sense of how these two might perform, let's take a look at some of these county trends on a presidential level. So there's a lot of counties here. We're not going to look at all of them. A few to take a look at here in the Southeast. Philadelphia County, it's overwhelmingly blue. Biden won it with 81 points last time. However, that's 1 point less than Hillary did. Plus, Hillary put up 3 points less than Obama did in 2012. On the other side, Trump's support has gone up very slightly. So it's a Democratic stronghold with a ton of population, but Trump has managed to make some gains here. That could be one potential bright spot for McCormick. Now, outside of there, you've got the suburban Philadelphia counties. There's Delaware, Chester, Montgomery, and Bucks, and they've pretty much all steadily gotten bluer over the past decade. Bucks is competitive. Biden only won it by 4. And Chester County was actually won by Mitt Romney in 2012. But since then, it's gone left off a cliff of Biden winning it by 17. Now, a little bit more north of there, we've got Northampton, and this has been a competitive county. Obama carried it in 12, but Trump flipped it in 16. Then Biden was able to narrowly flip it in 20. So that could be one of 2 potential bellwethers. And in some of these northeastern counties, these have gotten a lot redder since the days of Obama. In Lackawanna, Obama won this county by 26 points. But just 4 years later, Trump closed that gap, and he only lost it by 3.5 points. Last time, however, it did take a step toward the Democrats. And next to there in Luzerne County, this one went to Obama in 12, but since then it went right off a cliff. Last time, Trump won it by 16, although that margin was reduced from 2016. So in this part of the state, with the voters that have moved away from the Democrats, Bob Casey is hoping he's trusted enough to keep enough of those voters in his column. Now, another potential bellwether is going to be in the Northwest in Erie County. Here it was a blowout for Obama. He won it by 16. But then 4 years later, Trump was able to close that gap. He flipped it and he won it by 1.5. So that is some classic movement we've seen in a lot of Rust Belt counties. However, in 2020, it moved slightly back toward the left. Biden won it by 1 point. So this is a very significant county to watch. Now, a lot of these red counties are extremely red, even back in the days of Mitt Romney. So McCormick is going to be looking to run up his totals here. We'll close it out here in Pittsburgh and Allegheny County. Last time, Biden did 3.5 points better than Hillary, and Trump went down 0.5 point. So a lot of people here, and it did get a little bit bluer. Now let's see how Bob Casey did in his last win in 2018. And remember, that was a blue wave type of national environment. So he won by 13 points over Lou Barletta. And even though most of these counties look the same, let's look at that swing county of Erie. This is not close at all here. Bob Casey won by 18 points. In the Southwest, he even carried Beaver County by a few points. Another county that flipped is going to be in the Southeast. Berks flipped and went for Casey by a few points. So it's safe to say in all these counties, Casey did really well. He outperformed Joe Biden by significant margins. And once you add all that up, it was pretty much a landslide for Casey, over double digits. Now let's take a glance at their official campaign websites. Here it is for Bob Casey. If by chance you're unfamiliar with him and you want to see who he is, where he stands on the issues, check out his store or donate to his campaign. And here it is for Dave McCormick. To navigate around his site, you're going to have to click here in the top right. Then you can see who he is, where he stands on some of the issues, what his campaign is up to, etc. Now, how about any debates? Well, we already had one. I watched it. It was a pretty good debate. Casey hit McCormick, but McCormick went right after Casey. I'm sure each side thinks their candidate won the debate, but we've also got another debate, and it's actually tonight. So it's great to see these two having multiple debates. So we'll see these two slug it out one more time, but let's move on to the current polling. Right now, in the aggregate, Bob Casey is ahead by just under 4 points. All the individual polls do have Casey ahead. However, over the past month or two, McCormick has gotten his support up into the mid-40s in many of these polls. Casey does hit 50% in some, but in a lot of these, he's sitting in the high 40s. So the gap has narrowed. I think everybody's waiting to see which way the late breakers are going to move in the final few weeks. Can McCormick actually maintain momentum and make this race truly competitive for Election Day? I think if Casey were to go down, that would at least be a moderate, if not a significant upset. Now, for comparison, let's see how accurate the polling was in 2018. This one, again, was not really competitive, so there's going to be less polls. It looks like Barletta was underestimated by a couple of points. Casey's support was closer. In the end, once you're into a double-digit race, it's not going to be as huge of a deal if you're off by 3 or 4 points. Finally, we'll take a look at Polymarket and see where people are putting their money. Right now, Bob Casey is at 77% favored to win. McCormick, the Republican, is at 23. And going back to the summer, this was a complete landslide for Casey. He was at least in the mid-80s for a long time. However, over the past few weeks, the race has started to narrow. McCormick is still only in the 20s, so it's not really that competitive yet, but it's definitely going to be one to follow closely in the final couple of weeks. So what's the conclusion here in this race? Well, this is a purple state, and Casey had no trouble winning re-election 6 years ago. And even though Democrats have had far more success winning statewide races over the past few cycles, there are still some elected statewide Republicans. So it's not impossible here for McCormick to actually close this gap, but he did run just a couple of years ago, and he did lose to Dr. Oz in that GOP primary, who himself went on to lose to John Fetterman in the general election. I think Oz was a weak candidate, but he did get the Trump endorsement. That probably was enough to put him over the top to become the nominee. Now it seems like the Trump base has coalesced around McCormick, and he's taken it seriously. I do give him credit on running a better campaign than I thought he would. Casey has a much deeper connection to the state. I would guess he's going to have solid appeal in the suburbs. McCormick has questions about his residency, and he was in the George W. Bush administration, so maybe that helps him a little bit with some more establishment ties from his past. But as we saw, different parts of the state have moved in different directions, and with Trump at the top of the ticket, turnout here may be unpredictable. How many voters at the top of the ticket are going to vote for Trump but then cross over and vote for Casey for Senate? It's a great question. Anything could happen in the final few weeks. If more polls drop showing Casey with a very narrow lead, then I expect this market to tighten up. But so far, this is a pretty good battle. We're getting multiple debates. It's shaping up to be competitive, but I'm going to leave it there. So let me know in the comments, what do you think about this race? Bob Casey is definitely still favored, but do you think that could change by November 5th? Do you think these two are running smart campaigns? Is Casey playing it too safe, or is his name alone enough to win re-election? Let me know down below on your way out. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Join if you'd like to support the channel. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.